Hello, my dear children. Welcome you all back for our lesson, The Address, written by Margo Minco. Today we are dealing with the last part of the lesson, where we say the story just reflects on the post-war and pre-war of World War II. Okay? As we all know that Margo Minco, being a person who was a victim of the World War II, happened to come back to his homeland after a few years of the war. And we see that once she came to the house, she was not accepted by the owner of the house, Mrs. Dolly. Okay, she comes here with the address given by her mother. Okay, so once she was ignored, she can't even think about missing the things once she lost from her family. She thought of gathering some warmth of the possessions that once they had in their life. So for the second time, she comes to the very same home with the address. And here, in the second visit, a girl of 15 opened the door for her. Okay. Then we see that the narrator was invited inside the house as the girl's mother went out. And the girl offered a coffee by the girl. Okay. Then what we see there is, once the protagonist stepped inside the house, she noticed the things one after the other, which was once belonged to their family, or which was once a beloved to their family. Okay. Then we see that she had seen the Hanukkah candle holder, the cutlery, tablecloth, etc. in Mrs. Darling's house, and she felt a warmth in her life about her family. And I think we stopped here in the last class. Okay, now turn your textbook for the last part and let's see what happened there. I looked up. The girl put cups ready on the tea table. She had a broad back, just like her mother. She poured tea from a white pot. All it had was a gold border on the lid. I remembered. She opened a box and took some spoons out. Okay, so what we see in the last class is she was seated there and she was offered coffee by the girl. Okay, she went to prepare coffee and now she comes back with the coffee. She placed the coffee on the table, and now once the girl placed the teapot on the table, here we see that the girl placed the teapot on the table. This narrator happened to see a familiar teapot, and here it says that this girl took some spoons also, and now by the time she noticed that it was a familiar teapot with a golden line. Definitely, this teapot was once theirs, or once that belonged to the narrator's family. And as she had made a closer look to the girl, she could see that this girl just looked like her mother with a broad back. She was just preparing tea, putting sugar and giving it to the narrator. Okay, now what she noticed there is she also took some spoons from a drawer. Okay, so she started recollecting the memory once she had seen a familiar white teapot with a golden line. Okay, then that's nice. I heard my own voice. It was a strange voice, as though each sound was different in this room. Oh, you know them about? She had turned around and brought me my tea. She laughed. My mother says it's antique. We have got lots more. She pointed round the room. See for yourself. Okay, now, as this narrator who was seated there happened to see this teapot, white teapot with a golden line, she said herself, what is that? Oh, that's nice. It's a familiar teapot, but unknowingly she commented that it is nice. And she feels so sorry. Why should I say that it's nice? Already it's ours. Already it's mine once. Now I feel like strange by telling that it's nice. That's why she says that she finds her own voice so strange, because she was acting as if it was not hers or she was seeing it for the first time. Okay, why she is responding like this is because she sees her valuable precious things in an unfamiliar place. Okay, and also the way the things were arranged, everything seems so strange. That's maybe one of the reasons why she says, wow, that's beautiful, instead of just accepting as yes, it's ours. Okay, so when the girl heard this, she was so happy. And she said that, it's an antique piece. That means it's long time back. It's a very rare piece. Unique one. And we have got a collection of them. A lot of collections here. So come, I'll show you. We have got many things like this. I'll show you all around. Okay. I had no need to follow her hand. I knew which things she meant. I just looked at the still life over the tea table. As a child, I always fancied the apple on the pewter plate. We used it for everything, she said. Once we even ate off the plates hanging there on the wall. I wanted so much, but it wasn't anything special. I had found the bone mark on the tablecloth. The girl looked questioningly at me. So now what happened there? Once the girl just wanted to show everything, she just thought of calling or just make this narrator see all the antique items which was present in their house. But what we see, there is a narrator remembers all the things that belongs to her, and she says that there is no need for the girl to show me everything. I know which things are ours and which things are not ours. She says that, and now all of a sudden she happened to see a small plate which was kept on the table. What was that? Pewter plate. What is the pewter plate? Actually, pewter plate is a bowl in which we used to keep fruits. Or what is that? Decorative fruits, or what is that? Ordinary fruits that we used to keep on the table. So here, that plate she remembers. She says that I like the pewter plate so much because the apple or the fruits which was kept there, I used to fancy about that. Okay? During when I was a small girl, I used to look at that. I used to love that. Now the very same plate is kept in the dining table of this Mrs. Darling's house. Okay? And that's why we see that there is no need for the girl to show her all the antique things. Even the narrator herself knows it very clearly, because in her childhood days she fancied or she loved to see all these things, especially the plate in which fruits were kept on the dining table. She remembers all about her favorite cutleries. By the time we see that the girl gives her hand over a cup of coffee. Okay. Now, also we see that this girl was very much happy to point out the plate that was hanging there in a corner. Says that we used to eat in that too. Okay. And as the girl was very busy in showing all the antique, all the cutleries, special cutleries which was made of silver, then other things, valuable, costly things. By the time we see that the narrator who was seated near the table, she was fancied looking at the tablecloth. She identifies the tablecloth and she remembers that there was a bone mark. Immediately she just made her hand just go through the tablecloth, and finally she could see the bone mark. And she is just looking at so curiously at this bone mark. And this sight was seen by the girl. And the girl was just having wondered about the narrator who touched or who happened to find out the bone mark in the tablecloth. And this girl might be thinking, how this girl or how this lady know about that bone mark? She was just looking with a suspicion. The girl was just looking at the protagonist with the suspicions, as how do her know? How do she know that there is a bone mark? Okay, anyhow, we see that each and every little thing in the house was fancied, or once again, this protagonist was taking much care and interest in looking out the things. Okay, so then, yes, I said, you get so used to touching all those lovely things in this house. You hardly look at them anymore. You only notice when something is missing, because it has to be repaired or because you have lent it, for example. Again, I heard the unnatural sound of my voice and I went on. I remember my mother once asked me if I would help her polish the silver. It was a very long time ago and I was probably bored that day, or perhaps I had to stay at home because I was ill, and she had never asked me before. I asked her which silver she meant, and she replied, surprised, that it was all the spoons, forks and knives, of course. And that was the strange thing. I didn't know the cutlery we ate of every day was silver. Okay. So what we see here is, as the girl was just very slowly, softly touching each and everything that belonged to her once, The girl says that yes, we have so many like this. Okay, then we see that the narrator was just giving a sort of nostalgic memory and the importance of relation that she had with the things which were once theirs. And she says that actually all the things in our house, we won't be having a look at that, or we won't be remembering the things once it was at our home. But we'll start realizing the value of one thing once it got missed from our home, or once we just lent it to someone for rent or something like that. Then only we will try to understand the importance and the value of things that we have in our house. So now only this protagonist understand the value of each and every spoon or knife that she had in her house before the war. At present, all those things can be seen in whose house? In Mrs. Darling's house. Okay? And now, when she had seen the very same things, she started touching, she started trying to have a feeling that this was once ours. Okay? And now, what we see here is this narrator all of a sudden remembers some echoes of the words which were said by her mother. What is that? Once she was at her home, she is not remembering whether she was ill or whether she was having a holiday or not. Okay? One day, her mother just asked her something. What is that? Just to polish all the silvers. And she was just asking what silvers. She was not aware about the things, the silver things that her house or that her family possessed. That shows that they lived a luxurious life. They were rich enough, having all the cutlery, silver, expensive things. The mother was asking, what you are asking? I'm just talking about the spoons, the knives, the cutleries that we are eating. Just go polish everything. Then that was one of the moments that this girl or the protagonist realized that, okay, every day we eat in silver cutleries. That means expensive plates, using expensive spoon, knives, forks. Okay, so this time sitting in the home of Mrs. Darling, she remembers, or the words of her mother echoes in her mind. Okay, now she realized that the very same cutleries, the very same spoons, forks, knives, everything now become an antique thing, or now become in the house, a member of Mrs. Darling's house. She felt so sad about that she can't possess it back. Okay, now the girl laughed again. I bet you won't know it is either. I looked intently at her. What we eat with? She asked. Well, do you know? She hesitated. We walked to the sideboard and wanted to open. She walked to a sideboard and wanted to open a drawer. I look. It's in here. I jumped up. I was forgetting the time. I must catch my train. She had her hand on the drawer. Don't you want to wait for my mother? No, I must go. I walked to the door. The girl pulled the drawer open. I can't find my own way. As I walked down the passage, I heard the jingling of spoons and forks. So what we see here, as she was just talking about the things, as the protagonist was just narrating the things once happened in her house along with her mother, we say that this girl of Mrs. Darling was also telling that we do have same things here. Okay, if you come with me, I'll show you something. We are also just eating in the same plates. We are also using the same spoons, silver cutleries. So if you come with me, I'll show you some. Okay? The girl also told the narrator about the place in which they were eating. And she was very eager to show the narrator all the cutleries of their collection too. But by this time, this narrator or the protagonist, Margo Minco, she was not ready to see further things of the house. She doesn't want to see more of their things, which was kept in a strange situation, in an unfamiliar place, in an awkward situation, because she was unable to withstand with the emotional stress that is dominating her life. Immediately what she said, no, I don't have time. I wanted to catch my train. I wanted to go back to the special train. I think it's time up. I'm not going to wait here. I don't want to see any more things. Immediately she stood up and she was just about to leave. By the time we see that the girl was just inquiring whether she was not waiting for her mother. The narrator was rushing towards the door, telling that no, I don't want to see your mother. It's time up for me to catch my train. That means she can't stand there anymore looking at her own things, because she just thought about the beautiful days, the beautiful things that she had with her mother. Now all the things which once she valued in her life was in an unfamiliar place, in an awkward situation. On her way back to the passage, we see that she heard the jingling sound of the spoons and forks, because by the time the small girl, or the girl of 15, Mrs. Darling's daughter, was opening a drawer to show the spoons and special forks. By the time we see that the narrator just left the house without waiting for Mrs. Darling. Okay. Now at the corner of the road, I looked up at the nameplate. Marconi Street, it said. I had been at number 46. The address was correct. But now I didn't want to remember it anymore. I wouldn't go back there, because the objects there are linked in your memory with familiar life of former times. Instantly lose their value when severed from them. You see them again in strange surroundings. And what should I have done with them in a small rented room where the shreds of blackout paper still hung along the windows, and no more than a handful of cutlery fitted in a narrow table drawer? I resolved to forget the address. Of all the things I had to forget, that would be the easiest. So now, as the girl was about to move out from the house, once again the protagonist looked at the nameplate. What was that? It was said, Darling, number 46, Marconi Street. She says, yes, the address was correct. But from this time onwards, I don't want to remember the address. What was the reason? Because she find all her possessions lost its value in an awkward situation. That is one reason why she wanted to forget the address. And she is not having any connection with any of the things that's now in the home of Mrs. Darling. It has lost its value. It has lost all the serenity that she had with her mother. Okay? So the one of the reason why she thought of forgetting the address was, now it has lost its value in an awkward situation. The next reason why she wanted to forget is, now she is living in a small rented home, or in a small rented room. There is no enough space for her to keep at least one handful of cutleries in a safer place. And there is no enough space for her to keep the paintings, the antiques, the cutleries, the plates, everything that was in the home of Mrs. Darling. So that is the second reason why she thought of forgetting the address. Now she determined, she resolved to forget the address as it gives her painful memories. She doesn't want it. She says that my life, my rented house is very small. Even there is no enough space. So let me forget about the address. And she started to feel so uncomfortable that she had no desire to possess her mother's belongings. So that's one of the reasons that she thought of forgetting the thought of ever getting those things back. Okay? So this is what Margo Minco's address is all about. Because the things which was now in the custody of Mrs. Darling no longer have any value, because it has lost its value once it was taken away from their life. It was seen in an unfamiliar situation, in an awkward situation. She very clearly knows that this is not going to give any more fragrance or warmth of her family, and moreover she doesn't have enough space to keep it in her rented house. Now the only thing that she can do in her life is just to ignore the address. Just ignore all the things once it was theirs. Just ignore the belongings of her mother. That is the best thing that she thought about. So she immediately went out from the house of Mrs. Darling and she went back towards her rented house. Okay, that's all about the lesson, the address. Have a great day. Thank you.